Hello and welcome back to Chapter 4 of A Long Walk to Water by Linda Sue Park. I'm going to start with Naya's section in southern Sudan in 2008. Naya's mother took the plastic container from her and emptied the water into 3 large jars. She handed Naya a bowl of boiled sorghum meal and poured a little milk over it. Naya sat outside in the shade of the house and ate. When she was done, she took the bowl back inside. Her mother was nursing the baby, Naya's little brother. "Take Akir with you," her mother said, nodding toward Naya's sister. Glancing at her younger sister, Naya did not say what she was thinking, that Akir, who was only 5 years old, was too small and walked too slowly. "She needs to learn," her mother said. Naya nodded. She picked up the plastic container and took Akir by the hand. Home for just long enough to eat, Naya would now make her second trip to the pond. To the pond and back, to the pond and back. Nearly a full day of walking altogether. This was Naya's daily routine 7 months of the year. Daily. Every single day. And now back to Salva's section, 1985. Salva held his breath as he scanned the faces one by one. Then the air left his lungs and seemed to take all hope with it. Strangers. No one from his family. The old woman came up behind him and greeted the group. "Where are you going?" she asked. A few of the people exchanged uneasy glances. There was no reply. There was no reply basically because nobody knew where they were going. They just knew they were going away from wherever the fighting was to try and be safe. So that's why they didn't answer the woman. The woman put her hand on Salva's shoulder. "This one is alone. Will you take him with you?" Salva saw doubt on the people's faces. Several men at the front of the group began speaking to each other. Now, if you remember, when that other group of people left Salva in the woman's barn, it was because they knew that he was a young boy, that he was a child, that he wouldn't be able to, help them, and that he might put them in danger because he would soon be maybe considered old enough to be a soldier. So this is why they are hesitant to take this boy with them. "He is a child. He will slow us down. Another mouth to feed? It is already hard enough to find food. He is too young to do any real work. He'll be of no help to us." Salva hung his head. They would leave him behind again, just as the others had. Then a woman in the group reached out and touched the arm of one of the men. She said nothing, but looked first at the man and then at Salva. The man nodded and turned to the group. "We will take him with us," he said. Now, it does not say it directly, but this again is where you can infer or figure something out based on what you read. The woman in the group who touched the arm of one of the men, what are you inferring about her? Perhaps that she was married to this man? Perhaps that something had happened to one of their children, or that they had children as well, and that she was letting the man know that it's the right thing to do, that yes, he might be too young, or yes, they might have to give him some of their food, but it's still the right thing to do. She never said anything, okay? Right here, she said nothing, okay? You can infer that maybe they had a young boy, or that they were married and she was just letting him know that that was the right thing to do. Salva looked up quickly. A few in the group were shaking their heads and grumbling. The man shrugged. "He is Dinka," he said, and began walking again. The old woman gave Salva a bag of peanuts and a gourd for drinking water. Okay, a gourd is just a hollowed out type of, I don't want to say vegetable because you don't eat a gourd, but it's hollowed out and you can put water in it. It's like a container for water. Okay. It grows. He thanked her and said goodbye. Then he caught up with the group, determined not to lag behind, not to complain, not to be any trouble to anyone. He did not even ask where they were going. for fear that his questions would be unwelcome. So he's going to make sure he's not a nuisance to them because he knows that they really didn't want to take him with them. He knew only that they were Dinka and that they were trying to stay away from the war. He had to be content with that. The days became a never-ending walk. Salva's feet kept time with the thoughts in his head, the same words over and over. Where is my family? Where is my family? Every day he woke and walked with the group, rested at midday, and walked again until dark. They slept on the ground. The terrain changed from scrub to woodland. They walked among stands of stunted trees. There was little to eat, a few fruits here and there, always either unripe or worm rotten. Salva's peanuts were gone by the end of the third day. After about a week, they were joined by more people, another group of Dinka and several members of a tribe called the Ch4. Men and women, boys and girls, old and young, walking, walking, walking to nowhere. Salva had never been so hungry. He stumbled along, somehow moving one foot ahead of the other, not noticing the ground he walked on or the forest around him or the light in the sky. Nothing was real except his hunger, once a hollow in his stomach, but now a deep buzzing pain in every part of him. So those of you who maybe miss one meal or something and think, oh, I'm so hungry, it's not really the same unless you're really hungry, and the real hunger is what these people were facing. Usually he walked among the Dinka, but today, shuffling along in a daze, he found he had fallen a little behind. Walking next to him was a young man from the Ch4. Salva did not know much about him, except that his name was Buxa. As they walked along, Buxa slowed down. Salva wondered sluggishly if they shouldn't try to keep up a bit better. Remember, he was worried about getting in trouble. Just then, Buxa stopped walking. Salva stopped too, but he was too weak and hungry to ask why they were standing still. Buxa cocked his head and furrowed his brow, listening. They stood motionless for several moments. Salva could hear the noise of the rest of the group ahead of them, a few faint voices, birds calling somewhere in the trees. He strained his ears. What was it? Jet planes? Bombs? Was the gunfire getting closer instead of farther away? Salva's fear began to grow until it was even stronger than his hunger. And then, a slow smile spread over Bux's face. There, you hear? Salva frowned and shook his head. Yes, there it is again. Come. Buxa began walking very quickly. Salva struggled to keep up. Twice, Buxa paused to listen and then kept going even faster. What? Salva started to ask. Buxa stopped abruptly in front of a very large tree. Yes, he said. Now, go call the others. By now, Salva had caught the feeling of excitement. But what shall I tell them? The bird, the one I was listening to. He led me right here. Bux's smile was even bigger now. You see that? He pointed up at the branches of the tree. Beehive. A fine, large one. Salva hurried off to call the rest of the group. He had heard of this, that the Ch4 could follow the call of the bird called the honey guide, but he had never seen it done before. Honey! This night they would feast. Okay, so here is what you need to know and remember from Chapter 4. First, talk a little bit more about Naya. We haven't talked much about her other than she's tough. Many of you, for the question yesterday, I asked you, or it might have been 2 days ago, I asked you to give me a word to describe Naya. Many of you thought that she was tough, that she was smart, because she had to do what she had to do, and she just accepted it and knew that it was what was best for her family. So I want you to keep in mind that Naya has to walk to the pond and back to fetch water for her family twice a day, every day. So we're talking, now I know some of you have been going for walks lately while you've been quarantined. So this is not just a leisurely walk while listening to music or whatever. This is in very hot weather, across sand, across dangerous land, and she's doing it twice a day. And on the way back each day, she's carrying that big container of water, which obviously would be very heavy. And she has to do that every day, 7 days a week. Okay, she doesn't get days off. She has to do it twice a day, every day, 7 days a week for 7 months out of the year. Now, we're going to talk about what she does the other 5 months of the year. She still has to fetch water, but it's during the dry season, so her family moves somewhere else. Okay, and we'll talk about that later on in the book. Second thing about Naya is that Naya's mom wanted her to take her little sister Akir with her to fetch the water so that Akir would learn what to do. Akir is only 5 years old, but at some point, Naya, who's 11, will get a little bit older, and Akir will get a little bit older, and Akir will take over Naya's job as the one to go fetch water. So that's why her mom says, hey, take her with you, show her, exactly what to do and where to go. Now, she's not going to do it, I don't think, anytime soon, but she does need to know how to do it. Now, I know some of you have a hard time with your little brothers and sisters, especially during this quarantine time, but imagine walking a couple miles with them and having to listen to them complain and so on and so forth when it's just something that you have to do. But Naya didn't say anything to her mom. She knew that that's just the way it was. Okay, she didn't tell her mom, no, I'm not going to do that, or no, that's not right, or whine or anything. She just did what she needed to do because it's more about survival than anything. So, switching away from Naya and going back to Salva, during this quarantine, many of you, I'm sure, have felt bored. I know that when I read many of your time capsules, that was one of the things that several of you mentioned. It was being bored, which makes sense because you're doing the same thing over and over again every day. However, can you imagine being in Salva's shoes, or considering the fact that I don't think he had shoes, being in walking in Salva's footsteps? After listening to his story, I hope you're thankful for what it is that you have, rather than being upset for what you can't do. Now, I know, there are many of you who are very upset about what you cannot do during this quarantine, and you can't wait for it to be over so you can go out and do what you used to do. But at least most of you are with your family. Salva's not. You have enough food. Salva didn't. And you have enough to keep you occupied. Many of you, are telling me you're watching Netflix, or you're watching YouTube, or you're on your phone or your devices 7, 8, 9 hours. Think about that. For those same 7, 8, 9 hours, Salva was walking with a group of people. He's not really with friends. He's not checking his messages. He's not watching videos. He's not watching Netflix. He's just walking. And it becomes, a um, pretty boring routine for him to have to do. But, he's staying safe with the hope of one day being able to see his family again. All right, so for today's reading, you're only going to have 2 questions. So that's the good news. Okay, only 2 questions today after you finish watching this video. But when you answer them, I want them to be full sentences, and each answer must have at least 2 sentences each. You can have more than that, but each one has to be at least 2 sentences each. That's the end of chapter 4. I'll see you again next time for chapter 5. Have a good day.